Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Duffy Duck here once again, and I'm back for some more of the Maxi Toys videos, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Let's Play of Kirby Superstar, aka Kirby's Fun Pack, for the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom for Kirby of the Stars Super Deluxe for the Super Famicom, as I mentioned earlier. So last time we actually did tackle through the majority of Revenge of Meta Knight, and even then now that was a pretty fun, enjoyable ride and an enjoyable experience all in all, despite I died about twice on that particular run through. And today for this episode folks, is the fact that we're going to be moving on into the 6th and the final main game of the bunch, before we get to the extra games in the lineup by the forms of Megaton Punch and Samurai Kirby, and that's the forms of Milky Way Wishes. So we're almost towards the end of the actual Kirby Superstar before we jump into Kirby's Dream Land 3 from the Super Nintendo. So even then that makes it pretty obvious with the main Kirby franchise as far as it will go. And actually before we get into this kind of stuff, I just want to point things out. If you're probably wondering my voice has actually gone really quiet, it's because I'm actually recording this and during almost at the midnight, by the way. But even then I just want to point things out because I just want to keep my voice down for a moment, so just in case I start to interrupt Twilight Sparkle sleeping, or Sonic sleeping, or whatever. Whatever, it all depends though really, because I was really going to be busy just trying to get onto this game finished before we jump into Kirby's Dream Land 3 eventually, so, well, until next month though anyway. So anyways, let's get started of the forms of Milky Way Wishes, and yeah, this is going to be a long journey up ahead, because even then, much like how it does in the Great Cave Offensive, this might actually be one of the longest modes ever, so let's get started. Help! You must stop the sun and moon from fighting. And as you can see, the difficulty rating on this game this time around is 5 stars instead of 4, unlike Revenge of Meta Knight and the Great Cave Offensive. And the difference is here this time around though is the fact that we got ourselves star icons, which I'm presuming is what this usually represents how much levels you've done, and also item counts, meaning how much copy abilities you can get, and the clear rating means your progression. So without further ado, let's get started with Milky Way Wishes, and to start things off with the introduction. Does have a fountain of dreams, just like how it does in Kirby's Adventure, by the way. One day, in the year ... the sun and moon fought day and night. Hey! Can you make peace between the sun and moon? You need to ask the giant comet Nova for help. But first, there's something we must do. To ask Nova, we must gather power from all of the stars around us. It will be difficult, Kirby, but you can do it. We are counting on you. Good luck. So this is what it kind of reminds me like the exact same plot elements, but in forms of Mario Party 6, by the way, as well as the other one as well, which I'll get into in just a moment. Is this your first time playing Milky Way Wish? For the love of God, I've already played these other Kirby games, god damn it. Here's how you do it, the Milky Way Wishes. God. I'm getting sick of these tutorial segments, to be honest. But anyways though, here's the actual world map of the forms of the actual hub world in Milky Way Wishes. It feels a little bit different compared to how it does in the forms of Dino Blade, because of how the fact that you're going to be selecting which levels you want to go to in this enchanted pathway. But in this particular game this time around though, it's the fact that you can actually go what levels you want to tackle through first. So even then though, that you can tackle as many levels as you wanted to, which even then though, that makes a huge plus for my book. So even then though, before we get started with the first level in this particular Milky Way Wishes, is the fact that I'm actually entering this hidden level. And because of that, this is where we actually come across into our first copy ability. And by the way, in order to actually get the copy ability in this particular game this time around though, is the fact that, well, you still managed to able to swallow up the crash ability enemy, but except all of the enemies, because even then though, all the enemies represents the copy abilities are now represents you need to find them. So even then though, think of like the treasures from the Great Cave Offensive, for example, that normally you have to find treasures in any sort of sections. But in this game, this time around, is the fact that you need to find the Kirby ability deluxe until you're able to actually keep your Kirby abilities forever. So even then, I'll get to more details as soon as we get into the first level in the majority of, you know, Milky Way Wishes. So, yeah, the sun and moon fighting thing is something is almost related to also from Mario Party 6, as I mentioned earlier. And there's also the ones in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, when Princess Celestia is going to be, you know, hosting for the sun, and Princess Luna is going to be taking over for the night. So that makes it a little bit more of a preference here. So anyways though, here we are in the first level in Milky Way Wishes, and that's the forms of Floria, which is basically the typical grassy land field level. And as you can see, we're actually changing from season to season, and because of that, we're getting ourselves our second Kirby ability we've got by the forms of ice. So, as you expected, much like how it does in Treasures in the forms of the Great Cave Offensive, I'm actually going to be going for 100% on this mode. So even then, everything else checks out there. So, this level reminds me of almost related to the Great Maze, and especially with, I'm assuming the lake, but in forms of Super Smash Bros. Brawl Subspace Emissary mode. Because of that though, the gimmick on this level in Floria is basically we need to keep on going into different doors noticed, and it's also kind of reminds me of almost the exact same level, but in forms of a word classified for Giant Land from Super Mario Bros. 3, but in forms of, I can assuming the 6th level on that world. It's the fact that you're gonna have to keep on entering those doors until you're able to actually come across into different variations of the exact same level. Like, for instance, in this level's gimmick is the fact that we have to keep on switching between these different doors and all that stuff. And, oh yeah, we got ourselves a fighter ability right now. So naturally, I believe there are a grand total of 19 Kirby abilities to obtain in the forms of, you know, Milky Way Wishes. So, it might take a long multitude of tasks at the moment, but naturally speaking, I think the journey premise of this particular minigame itself, or the actual Milky Way Wishes, it might be not as bad as it used to be. So, of course, you still got some health to actually grind for, and especially with more extra lives and health and all that stuff. And the reason why I'm entering here is because if we actually go on to summer variation of this particular Floria level, is because you enter here, inside the actual tree trunk, we get ourselves our cutter. So, naturally, this level actually represents 4 seasons, which we've already established that in the forms of the Great Cave Offensive, that we've got summertime, or actually springtime first, summertime, autumn time, and winter time by the forms of the treasures themselves. It feels kind of similar from here, like you actually go through different seasons, like between spring at first, summer, autumn, and finally winter, so that makes it pretty obvious with this situation. So here we go folks, here's the first boss in the actual Milky Way Wishes, and that is Twin Words again, or Twin Words again. Because of that though, we already fight these two duos before, in the forms of, you know, back in during the likes of, Revenge of Mennonite before, except we don't have to worry about the time limit system this time. So naturally though, it looks incredibly easy as it should be, so... And also, when you're actually in the Milky Way Wishes, you can now able to press the X button until you're able to actually choose what Kirby abilities you can essentially use. So you can use the Kirby abilities anytime, anywhere. So even then, it's a bit like how it does in the Nintendo Switch exist. Like, you can actually carry that out of, carry around everywhere with that particular console / handheld, because, you know, it's a combination of the two. And, it's a pretty unique idea. So anyways though, that concludes Floria, which even though the ultimate goal is pretty simple, much like how it does it in Spring Breeze, and especially Kirby's Dream Land, in order to actually finish the levels, by simply we need to nab one of those stars until you're able to actually just proceed to the story, even for the actual main adventure. So, the next level we have is the forms of Aqualiss, which is basically a water level. So, nothing else to it though, because, you know, it's kind of like how it does it in the forms of the Grape Garden, or in this case, I would classify for Orange Ocean from, you know, Revenge of Mennonite, for instance, but still. And also, Float Islands, from the forms of Spring Breeze. So, except the actual environment itself is completely different between the, you know, 3 other variations of the water-themed levels like this, because, you know, we don't have to deal with the daylight variation and the sunset variation as well, and even now I'm assuming this is actually based off nighttime, I'm assuming, although I may be wrong about that, but I'm assuming the color palette on the actual ground is actually completely different. From here, we got ourselves the Paracel ability, which even then, though, that it might be pretty good as far as we might add. Now, as far as I've heard, that I haven't really touched upon this mode for quite some time, ever since the, you know, Kirby Superstar Ultra, that I haven't really got everything on that mode throughout. It's probably because, well, since I've actually first time playing the game, but it forms of not just from this version, but on the DS version at first. Because even then, I wasn't really know where every single Kirby ability's locations are. Along the same lines as, you know, the Great Cave Offensive as well, because I was completely blind back then. So, that makes it pretty obvious with this point and onwards. So, anyways though, so today was actually forms of the 21st of March, by consuming for that consumption though anyway, is that we only got 2 more days left until Detective Pikachu on the 3DS will be on its way during 2 days time. In the English version this time, but in forms of, you know, basically for pretty much for everything here for the most part. And now let's just wait until when the actual movie of Detective Pikachu will be on its way as well. So naturally speaking, that, you know, I've already established that from before that because of due to, you know, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story remake will be on its way next year, and especially noticeable with Luigi's Mansion remake on the 3DS, which again I would appreciate if how the fact that we can able to actually just release it on the Switch, because you know, releasing Luigi's Mansion remake on the Switch will be a really better choice, but no, it still hasn't though. And also WarioWare Gold, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker will be on its way, and we still have no idea when the 3DS will actually stop, until, you know, Nintendo Switch rather, is going to be most likely taking over for the majority of the future. Because you know how, remember back during the likes of in 2010, that normally Nintendo DS did manage to finish during the likes of, I'm assuming 2012, because of Nintendo Wii U is now taking over or something like that, or perhaps maybe if the Nintendo Wii still continues with that tradition, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe probably due to the 3DS is now taking over from Nintendo DS for, I would classify for 7 years or so, but even though every now and then that the 3DS won't able to survive for until 8 years time, or 8 years prior, which even though that makes it a little bit more crazy all of a sudden. So anyways though, that as I mentioned earlier, that I'm probably not going to be going after Detective Pikachu for some reason. No, I would appreciate it with how the fact that how interesting that game it is, but unfortunately due to more 3DS announcements they're about to be revealing, which I was really excited for. But again, this is probably just a nitpick, but I'm assuming it might actually be just something more related to, well, I don't know, going after too many ports too many times, but in forms of, well, basically for pretty much the exact same games as far as the actual, the Wii U versions are concerned, or something related to that. So, anyway though, anyways, let's talk about the actual, gimmick of the forms of, Milky Way Wishes. As I mentioned earlier, that the Kirby ability system acts completely differently compared to how it does it in Spring Breeze, the Great Cave Offensive, Dino Blade, and Revenge of Meta Knight, except for Gourmet Erase, because Gourmet Erase forces you to able to race against with King Dedede at one point. Oh yeah, in here we got ourselves our Beam ability, which even then though that could be something useful if we manage to able to do charge attacks by the forms of some mini bosses, for instance. But even then though, that we can able to actually classify for such. Now if you're probably wondering why I keep on wandering around all over the place here, it's probably because I know it's been a really long time coming since actually revisiting this mode, because I haven't really touched this mode, as I mentioned earlier, ever since, well, when I first got the DS version of the game, because, you know, I was completely blind back then, but still. So, naturally speaking, that you can also manage to able to actually press the you can also actually switch between those different Kirby abilities on the pause menu too, so just in case if you want to do that, then it's entirely up to you if you want to able to do that system, because even then though, fact that, again, it's so unique it's so darn unique when it comes to that particular system goes. I kinda wish it actually does that, but in forms of, you know, classified for, just pretty much for the sake of the future Kirby games. Well, we've already got Kirby Star Allies released recently, but in forms of, almost about a week ago now. But naturally speaking of such though, that I've pretty much more consumption throughout. So anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the Milky Way Wishes gimmick is the fact that it feels, you know, actually expected from, you know... Actually, I'll get into more details about this after when we get to the next level, because we got ourselves our next boss fight coming up, but in forms of... Well, this environment looks familiar, because we've already been there before ever since the Great Cave Offensive, and speaking of such, we got ourselves Fatty Whale again. But even then, it behaves exactly like how it does it from last time, but even then, except the fact that I found this guy to be a lot tricky to deal with, because if you even then... his attacks can be really random if you did not pay attention like I do here, especially with my partner companion can get really you know, obnoxious at one point for quite a few times. But even then, luckily though, to make things easier, because even then that you can now able to switch between those copy abilities whenever you want to this time around, which even then makes it a little bit more of a giant improvement of the ones of the other side games. Okay, so luckily though, you don't have to get hit right there, although I apologize if my screen flickering just sometimes flickers most of the time, but that's only because of some capture cards these days doesn't hand out the flickeriness like, you know, sometimes like right here. But again, I do apologize for that. So hopefully you should be down in any moment. Boom! There you go. Oh shoot, I actually realized about something. I actually missed out on that last copy ability trophy from that particular level, Aqualiss. So even though luckily though, I'm much more able to actually come back for that level anytime whenever I wanted to, if I miss some. So I'll meet you guys back onto that current point. Alright, back at that point right there. So it turns out I've already been there before, but I kept on thinking of something else, mainly the future levels for instance. But even then, I think this is where the actual next copy ability is going to be located. Because even then, if you remember playing through Subspace Part 1 and 2 in Super Smash Bros. Brawl in Subspace Emissary mode, now one of the levels that you have to play as Luigi, Ness, and King Dedede on that level, in addition to Kirby himself as well, that you're gonna have to find all of the characters' trophies. It's kind of like that, but except the fact that we're actually fighting copy abilities instead of, well, just finding, you know, characters based off from trophies. So... yeah, it's a bit of a similar mechanic, but in forms of between these two aspects. So, oh god, we got a dangerous enemy again this time. And one thing I should probably mention about this right from the start, though, is the fact that every single enemies, except bosses, but until when it gets to Kirby Superstar Ultra, oh yeah, we now got a sword ability right now. So even then, though, that pretty much does it for the forms of Aqualiss. So even then, though, it only carries up to 3 copy abilities at the moment. But until the future levels, mainly due to the other ones for instance, well, we'll get into that in a second or two. But even then, I just get the feeling that this game, unlike how it does it in the forms of Dynablade, you can just simply exit out the current level you've already completed, and able to get back into your progression by the forms of just, you know, world map screen. But unfortunately in this game, you can't allow you to do that, because you have to actually complete the level first before you're actually able to continue throughout. So I'll meet you guys back in the world map. Alright, back in the world map, so even then that pretty much does it for Aqualiss. So now let's move on to the 3rd level. And this is known as Skyhigh. Not to be confused as Skyhigh Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Game Gear / Master System. Which, except the fact that unlike in Skyhigh from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, that you have to deal with this really awful hang gliding sections. This game doesn't force you to deal with the hang gliding sections, thank god, because if it does, then it'll just makes it a little bit more trickier to deal with here. And of course, since I actually lost my copy ability, but that's fine, I can get that back. In fact, coolest thing about this particular copy ability system works in this particular Milky Way Wishes is that this particular copy ability system is pretty much unlimited, so you can use that anytime, anywhere, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, you're not able to actually swallow these enemies based off from copy ability system anymore, unlike in any other games in this particular Kirby Superstar, among with the future games. So, that's as far as you expect it to. But anyways, sometimes I have to admit though right away though is the fact that much like how it does in the Great Cave Offensive, sometimes it might actually just lead you to certain maze sections, which even then though, that might be seems conductive, but even then though, they have to get used to how the fact that the layout itself will actually brings us to. So, okay, so I believe the next Kirby ability we need to get is to able to require to use Jet. Because thankfully though, Jet can able to actually lit up ropes, which even then, that way it can actually light up the cannon, which I was too late because sometimes Mr. Freezies can really mess you up with your movements, even especially they, you know, keep on respawning every time when you exit off screen and stuff like that, which is always distracting. But if you manage to be able to actually hold up your jet boost, as long as you're able to actually just press the Y button again, and you would able to get yourself a burst of speed. And thankfully though, the computer opponents like he does right there, now he transforms into Wheelie for instance, now I can able to keep my wheel ability anytime I wanted to as well. So how about that? So how many Kirby abilities I've got right about now? I could assuming I wasn't paying too much attention unfortunately, but I'm most well able to actually look up all those kinds of stuff when we actually finish with this kinds of stuff. So, and at the very end we have to deal with this door lap with maze, which even I know I don't know exactly what I'm gonna go here, so I might as well have to figure out what I'm gonna go here, because I can tell one of those sections will actually contain the final Kirby ability on this level though, so anyway though, so let's get into the actual gimmick of Milky Way Wishes for it, shall we? You know, kind of like how it does in new forms of Spring Breeze and Dynablade and Revenge of Meta Knight, and especially noticeable with the Great Cave Offensive is that you're still able to actually use Kirby abilities, but with a different system this time. And in addition to that though, and also there's going to be tons of exploration if you manage to able to do anything like that. And I think that's what I can tell about this particular point. Besides, you know, the Kirby ability system is completely different compared to how it does it when we used to. But that's only because of how the fact that, you know, they can now be act out as like somewhat similar to trophies, but in forms of Super Smash Bros. Brawl Subspace Part 1 and 2. And by the way, we got also wing ability now, so I believe that pretty much does it, but in forms of Skyhigh, but not until we were able to defeat the boss. So naturally, we've got ourselves 9 more Kirby abilities left, so naturally, we've got 10 Kirby abilities to hold up with, so but again, there are 19 in total, all in all, but until when we're able to find ourselves the door that is usually over towards here, then we pretty much guarantee we can able to actually just, okay, we'll just let my companion just grab the invisibility lollipop. It's really unfair that I can't able to actually get the invincibility lollipop, I don't think. But at least the next boss fight we've got right here is Kracko. Hey Kracko, what's up? It's been a long time, hasn't it? Ever since Spring Breeze. Because it's been a long while, hasn't it? So, because we haven't come across into Kracko from, you know, Dynablade, because he wasn't there around that time, in addition to the Great Cave Offensive, and especially Revenge of Meta Knight, and all sorts. Although, except the fact that I will admit though, is the fact that he might be really tricky sometimes because he's gone all over the place, unlike how he does it in Spring Breeze. And also, I just realized his defense is actually really higher up compared to how it does it in the forms of, you know, Spring Breeze. But after all, I've got my blocking ability right from the start, and I can able to block his projectiles or his attacks. So, hopefully I might as well able to survive for this fight with a little bit of health, which I did, which is quite lucky there. Even though if I accidentally did die from the very end, if they a little bit of a tad, a little bit of health left, but I could assuming I might as well able to actually redo the fight again, which even then that won't be as good as it used to be. And since then I've lost my companion with me, but even then that might be some alright stuff. So anyway, so that pretty much does it from this point right there. So we've naturally completely done with 3 levels apiece, in addition to 10 Kirby abilities that we've obtained. And I'm assuming that we already got quite a few levels to go for this point, because well, there aren't any levels around here. Well, besides the length is going to be a little bit more longer compared to any other games on Superstar compilation. But I digress though, so we're going to end things off here, folks, because even then I've almost run out of time for doing more recording sessions until the next couple of days. So yeah, join me next time on Let's Play Kirby Superstar, aka Kirby's Fun Pack, or for that matter, Milky Way Wishes. So, we'll meet you guys back next time, is the fact that we're moving on into the Fire World, which I don't know exactly what this place is called, but we'll find out during when the next video comes. So see you guys next time. Later, fellas. See you guys then.